Dear friends of Love for Volleyball, Amor por el Voleibol, I'm pleased and honored to talk today with our former volleyball player from Canada. I think one of the most important players of history of Canada in volleyball, Olympic player, international player. I mean Paul Gratton, who's currently speaking with me today about his volleyball life. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hello, Alfredo. I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and real honor for me to be talking to you today.
Fantastic. And tell me, Paul, first of all, why and when did you start playing volleyball, and why did you choose volleyball as your sport?
Oh, okay. We're going way far back now.
Yes.
I don't come from a family of sportsmen. We were very active when we were kids. Canada being a Nordic country, I started off by skiing a lot in the winter, and the summer was more like fishing and swimming a lot. But I only started organized sport when I joined high school. I went to high school in grade 9, so that would be about 13 years old. And in high school, my sport was basketball.
Okay.
So, in Canada, if you don't play ice hockey, like just about everybody else, this is our number one sport. This is in high school we can play different other sports also, like American football, basketball. But really, I concentrated and I loved playing football in high school. I played for the full 5 years. It's only I gave volleyball a shot at grade 12. By the end of high school, it didn't work out. I had an injury. I tried again in grade 13, and yeah, I played volleyball there at the beginning of the season in my high school. Last year, I played for about 2 or 3 months. That was the duration of the season in preparation for the basketball season.
Okay.
So during that short season of volleyball, I got recruited, I guess. So I got asked to go and play for the city team, which I accepted because I really liked the sport. Yeah, I was just being introduced to the game, but I really liked it. And from there, I went to different competition in Toronto and in around Ontario. That's where I'm from. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, province of Ontario. And from there, well, I got asked to go to the trials for the junior national team that summer. So I prepared really seriously and I worked hard, but I had no expectation whatsoever. I had just started playing volleyball for a few months. But, I was very surprised at the end of the trial. And the coach said that I had made the team. So that year, that summer, that we trained with the junior national team. At the end of the summer, we went to Brazil.
Okay.
World Championships. That was 1977.
Okay.
And my skill level was so poor that I didn't think I'd see the court very much. But at the end of the championship, we had maybe 2 or 3 matches left to play. A lot of my teammates were sick, so I got the chance to go on the court, and I enjoyed it very much. And on the last day, that is maybe one turning point in my career, my very young career at that time. We went to see the gold medal match, and Brazil was playing against Russia. Well, actually, not Russia; it was Soviet Union at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that blew my mind. I watched. I couldn't imagine that volleyball could be played at that level, and just seeing 2 teams with 2 styles completely different was really amazing. The level of play, the execution, the control, the speed. Not only that, but the athleticism of all the athletes. It really blew my mind. I was so impressed by that game. So when I went back home after that championship, I was starting university, and I had been recruited to play basketball for Ottawa U. But I had to tell the coach that, I'm sorry, I'm choosing volleyball and I'm going to concentrate on volleyball. So that's how I got introduced to the game.
Fantastic story. I understand this because volleyball is so beautiful. For me, it's the most beautiful sport in the world. Even that ice hockey is beautiful, and I don't know, soccer is beautiful, but volleyball has something that we played volleyball in the youth or still play. Got us and embrace us with what you're telling, and the athletic skills from the players, the show that we see today, and even in the 70s. I always mention this. I'm very impressed. For example, from the Olympics in Montreal in '66. Okay.
Yes.
Because in this time volleyball was very different as today. The rules are very different. The heights of the physics of the players are very different as today. And this time, for example, you must be a giant in for the players, because the players were a little shorter, but less shorter than today, more or less shorter. But volleyball was growing, and I think, and I please correct me if I'm not wrong, that in Canada, after this Olympic Games, volleyball become a little more famous, and more players become wanted to play volleyball, as in your case. And I wanted to ask you, please, as you're saying, you decided to play volleyball. How was it after this Junior World Championship, and your decision to play volleyball? How was your career in the national team? Did you still play in college? How was it for you after this championship?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I'm from Ottawa. In Ottawa, there's two universities, Carleton and Ottawa U, but there's not one men's volleyball team in Ottawa, but there is a club team. So that year, when I came back from the Junior Worlds, I joined that club team, and I trained as hard as I could in preparation for the next summer, again, with the junior national team.
Okay.
But just before that camp with the junior national team, I got invited to the senior team.
Okay.
We had a new coach. The coach before was Bill Neville. He had returned to the United States, and the new coach was Ken Maeda.
Yes.
Ken came from Japan, and he just, I guess at that point, he just wanted to see as many players as possible, and try to make a roster to go to, if I'm not mistaken, yes, 1978 was the World Championships in Italy.
In Italy, exactly.
Yeah, and we were starting off the season, well, the team was starting off the season with a long tour in Asia. Anyways, I went to that camp trying to get some good reps and good training and stuff like that. And again, I was very surprised to see that I made the team. So I was the 12th player picked, and I had no doubt in my mind that my level of play was nowhere near anyone on that team. I had a lot of work to do, and I did work very hard, but I knew that it took me and a couple other young players trying to develop them and try to make them turn them into international athletes. But in a way, so because of that, I skipped altogether college volleyball. I went right from the juniors to the national senior team, which in retrospect was not only a blessing, but an incredible opportunity for me, because right away I was training. Absolutely. Even though I was not of their level, not even close, I was training with the best players in Canada, and with a very young coach, a very motivated and focused coach. And that was probably the best setting for me and for all the younger players that have joined the team to develop as fast as possible. And well, that's how it all started for me with the senior team. From then, the team was picked to the to play at the World Championships in '78. And you know, in Canada, like I was saying, volleyball is not very strong. It was not very strong at that time. And when we compare with the top teams in the world, we were not really competitive at that time. The same story as when I played with the junior national team at the World Championship. We went to the World Championship in Italy, and we saw some incredible volleyball. Unfortunately, we didn't do too good at that time. We finished second to last, I think.
Okay.
We got to see, some incredible teams, the Japanese team, the Brazilian teams, the Italian team was strong. And of course, the Soviet Union team with Zaitsev and Savin and they won that championship actually quite easily. They were so strong.
3-2. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, they were really incredible. And but just watching these guys and getting inspired by that level of play and knowing that, if we work hard, maybe we can reach that level of play, maybe in the top 10 in the world. And so we went home with a lot of information, actually. And we just, we dug our heels down and we started training really hard as a team. We were centered, which means that we were living all together 12 months a year in a center. We started off in Winnipeg and then we moved to Calgary, and we trained 12 months a year. And we competed throughout those months. And slowly we had a really good group of athletes. We had a new coach coming from Japan.
Yes.
And Japan, the culture of volleyball is really, really strong. I mean, in 1972, they won the Olympics with
in Germany, in München.
Yes, in Munich, yeah. So the history and the culture of volleyball in Japan, and they were exposed to top international competition all the time. And Ken was part of that cycle. His family was a volleyball family, so he had a lot of baggage, a lot of information to give us. And through those early years, I guess it was a matter of really establishing a culture, a different culture.
Yes.
To develop the team in a different way than we used to. He brought a lot of information from Japan and a lot of ways of teaching and coaching from Japan. I'm not going to lie to you. We worked really, really hard. But that's one thing that we could do. But we didn't only work hard. We worked differently and smart, and we tried to innovate things in Canada. And what's really interesting and really motivating and encouraging for us is that during those years, maybe between 1978 and 1984, when we went to the Olympics, there was a time when there was a lot of firsts. First time we beat Cuba. First time we beat Japan. First time we beat this team and this team. And by the end, we could probably play with anybody in the world. We could give a good competition with everybody in the world. We were going to the Olympics aiming for a medal.
Yes.
And I think it was realistic. We could have done it. Of course, as you know, the 1984 Olympics were boycotted by the Eastern Bloc. Sadly. So that means that there were some teams. There are some very strong teams that weren't there.
Yes, the
Soviet Union, the Soviet Union,
Cuba,
Poland,
the Polish team.
Those are big names, but nevertheless, the rest of the teams were really strong. Of course, the States won that year, and the States. It was funny because the States really, from when I started to the 1978 to the 1984 Olympics, they really changed the program around a lot. And they started winning and playing at a very high level.
Yes. Also,
it seems like their men's team really exploded during that period of time, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
So that's my.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because I have also the opportunity to talk with many players from this time, Brazilian players, American players, Russian players, and we talk always about the different schools of volleyball in this time. There was the Japanese school, as you're saying, and your coach, I suppose, wanted to adapt some of the Japanese volleyball playing style to your physical or your own style of playing. There was the Brazilian style, the Russian style. in this time more differentiated as today. Today, I think that the teams play very similar, but in this time, your team, many teams were searching for their own style to obviously to beat the another. And I always was very impressed about the good that your team played. For example, I watched many times the games from Los Angeles and 1984, the Olympic Games, and your team played very good against the American, against the Italian, and it makes sense what you're saying about the hard work you did for searching for a medal. Sadly, it didn't come, but to see the Canadian team in this time was very impressive, because you were top players. You have the opportunities to play around the world. And you're near that. For example, Chile, we are very far from Europe, from the United States, from Asia. You have the great opportunity to play all in this level. You played Olympic Games. You played in the Central and North Norseca, I think, is the championship. And always I wanted to know, and now I'm talking with you. Why do you think you couldn't achieve some medal, for example, in the Olympics or World Championship or important championships? Why do you think it's so? Because you maybe you had all to do this. Why do you think it couldn't be reached? I know it's a tough question.
Yes.
It's easy for me to say because I didn't wear this championship, but I'm curious about this because I want to ask you later about the Canadian volleyball, because I watched you play. I watched the guys today, and I see, they're so tall, they're so strong. What do you miss, or what is missing to get to the higher level in the world of volleyball?
Yeah, well, this this generation of players, like we qualified for 2 Olympics.
Yes.
For Canada, that's pretty exceptional. Glenn Hogue was the coach,
yes,
of that team, and he did an incredible amount of work to bring the team to that level. Now, what's missing? It's a difficult situation. I think we'd have to have a perfect storm in Canada to be, well, not a perfect storm, but if you take in account that Canada is a very big country,
yes,
with small population, you know, we don't have a lot of people. We have 35 million in that number. And then when you consider the fact that volleyball is not one of our most popular sport, we are a Nordic country where a lot of athletes go towards, first of all, of course, hockey. Hockey is our football for the rest of the world.
Yes. In Chile, South America, football is number one, always.
Yes. Number one in Canada is hockey. And so a lot of athletes go towards hockey. And then there's the typical pro sports that a lot of athletes go to, such as basketball, football, American football,
yes,
baseball, and now soccer, which is a good thing because soccer is such a great game. Well, soccer, or like the rest of the world, call it football.
Football, yes.
Volleyball is not one of our top sports here. So when it comes to recruiting athletes, it's a little bit difficult, and because naturally the athletes are drawn to different sports than volleyball. However, in the past years, and like all the work that the national team, not only the national team, but all the federations, all the provincial federation, the national federation, the city clubs in itself, put a lot of emphasis in trying to recruit players and just get them to play the game.
Okay.
Introduce the game to them. And of course, because the national team has been doing good and I've been going to the Olympics, that's an awful lot of exposure to athletes in Canada. And because of that exposure, more and more athletes are being exposed to the game and starting to get interest. Now, when you're young, of course, you want to develop athletes starting at a young age so that at a certain age, they are a very good level of play. In Canada, our sports system depends a lot on the school, sports at school. We have clubs, of course, but we depend on them. So we can play club ball, school and club ball from U12. Okay, so from athletes that are 12 years old up to 18 years old. Then they move to university.
Mm-hmm.
And in university, that's the highest volleyball that you can find in Canada.
Okay.
University, so athletes between the age of 18 and 20. They are student athletes. By that I mean they are students first,
Mm-hmm.
athletes second.
Yes.
Okay. So that group of age, because they only get to compete within themselves, they don't get exposed to international volleyball, and they are in a setting where really school is the number one priority and volleyball is the second priority.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of lag a little bit behind the international level. However, and I have to tip my hat off to a lot of university coaches that does an absolutely amazing job with their program, and the level of university ball in Canada has increased a lot. That said, it's almost impossible to bring that age group to a player of the same age in France, for example, or in Italy or in Poland, where they have a professional league and where they will be playing top international level from the age of 20, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and they will be practicing with guys that are 28, 30, 33 years old, so much experience, and they develop a lot faster than our guys here. So that team, what Glenn brought back, Glenn Hogue, the coach, what Glenn did when he first got the job as coaching is to bring all the top players from the university, and he brought them in a center in Gatineau, not too far from here, to train, increase the amount of training, and to bring these athletes back, to bridge that gap between the Canadian volleyball level and the international level. And that did an awful lot of benefit to the program.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons, I guess, that our program really in the past two Olympiads have done really, really, really well.
Yes.
But to take him from there and to bring him to the podium at the Olympics, I'm not qualified. Sorry, I'm not qualified to say that. I'm not an international coach. I know we have the athletes, we have the desire, we have, our athletes, you said it yourself, they're physical, they're athletic, and they are extremely motivated. Yes. They are hard workers. And I think if we keep in that line, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You don't just turn it in a few Olympiads and here we are on top of the world. But I think it's still within reach. And someday I'm hoping, keeping my fingers crossed, that we will be stepping on the podium.
Yes, absolutely. Even the female national team of Canada is playing a high level today. They play in the VNL. They will try to qualify for France. So it's great to know that Canada volleyball is growing and working so hard. And I wanted to go back with your story. I wanted to ask you about your experience in Los Angeles. How was this for you to play in this Olympic Games?
Oh my goodness! I'm sure every Olympians have the same answer. It was just amazing. Of course, it was amazing. We had high hopes, of course. There's the side of all the excitement, the media, and all that stuff, which is secondary, of course, to the actual competition. So in terms of volleyball, we were highly focused. We had some games that were tough. As far as we're all concerned, I think we were a little bit disappointed. We believed that we could step on the podium. Teams that were there, we had beaten before.
Okay.
It's just it didn't work out for us. A fourth place is not bad for Canada. It's the best we've ever done. But in terms of spirit, in a way, I think everybody was a little bit disappointed, or very disappointed. But in retrospect, and when you look at the trajet, the road that we took to get there, from 78 being last in the world, or almost last in the world, and move all the way up to, possible podium. There's something to be proud of.
Yes.
We had a good group. We worked really hard. We were really tight. We changed the culture. We changed the school of thought, like you were saying, of volleyball. A lot of things happened in those years, and we should be proud of that. So my spirit, like you said, during the games or right after the games, changed as the month and years passed. But right there and then, it was a little bit was disappointed, really, that we didn't get on the podium. But we lost to some really, really, really good teams, of course. But we weren't there to be try to do the best we can.
But
we wanted to win. I mean, that's one thing that characterized the team that we were on. We had some really amazing athletes. Guys like Tom Jones, Don Saxton, Glenn Hogue, John Barrett. We had some really highly competitive athletes that wanted only one thing, and it was to win.
Absolutely.
And that's how we prepared. And well, can't all win, but it's still a great experience.
But as you're saying, you played in Olympic Games. So for your life, for your career, it's incredible for your resume. And I wanted to mention that I could watch some games of your team in the Olympics in Los Angeles, and I always was very impressed about one player who jumped like a I don't know, like a crazy. And I find something on the internet which tells this. For example, Paul Gratton is one of the players as having one of the largest vertical jumps in the history of the game. There are many that still speak reverently of his legendary leaping ability. So you were a great jumper, and you could many times smash over the block of your rivals. How was this a natural thing of your play, or did you work very, very special to could jump like you did? But for example, I remember Alexander Sabin from Soviet Union, or from Russia. He was 2 meters high, and he jumps also as in your case, like an astronaut over the net. How was it? Was it for you? Was it your secret to play? Or was it a natural thing? Because in many parts I can read that this characteristic of you is one thing to remember.
No, there's some. If there was a recipe or a secret, I could be very rich today. I could sell this thing. There's nothing like that. It's really hard work, and I trained earlier on when I was training for basketball. I trained my jump a lot because I was going into being a post or a center, but a very short one at 6'5", that's 1.95 m. So I had to get some kind of height advantage from the jump. There is some natural ability there, but there's also a lot of work, and I think that's the secret. And if you start young enough, I think the natural part of it is not as important as the work that you put into it. Exactly. Now the trainers are so good into developing those physical qualities that athletes need. Their knowledge, really, the physical training has become a science that is really amazing, and those trainers with those athletes are having incredible results.
Fantastic. And moving on, Paul, about your career, when did you start thinking about being a professional player? When did you thought, okay, I will continue playing volleyball, or for example, I will look for some clubs to play outside Canada? How was the story in your case?
Okay, well, it's in those days. Remember, there was the professional leagues in Canada. We
Yes.
were amateurs,
Yes.
complete amateurs, and the program did not welcome to the program actually professional players. We didn't have anyone in Europe,
Yes.
I think, except for one player. But I think it's in '83. My coach at the time, Ken Maeda, approached me and another player, Terry Dunluck.
Yeah.
Approached us and said, "Well, there's a club team in Japan that's interested in both of you."
Hey, super.
Said, wow, that's interesting. I hadn't really. It was in the back of our mind, but the focus was really on the Olympics. And I said, "Well, if things work out, well, I'll be happy to go play in Japan." So, and I did. Terry and I did go play in Japan. I stayed there for 3 years.
Okay.
So that was played for a club close to Osaka. It was a little community called Mino. And the coach actually was Mr. Oko. I don't know if that rings a bell for you. He was the big star at the '72 Olympics. The big left side hitter. He was
in Japan. The volleyball. Sorry, I interrupt you. In Japan, I know volleyball is like a rock star. They have baseball,
yes.
they have volleyball, and all the games are broadcasting by television. The players are rock stars, and the crowd shout like if it were a rock concert. It's amazing how volleyball in Japan is.
Yes, it was such a difference than volleyball in Canada.
Yes.
And it was very interesting to play out there because of the popularity of the sport. But we were kind of in a bit of a shell.
Okay.
Where the team were protected from all the distraction that was happening around.
Yes.
But still, in Suntory, that was the company I was playing for. Suntory was the facilities and everything available was needed to practice and to perform was there for us. It was quite incredible. It was a really good environment to be training and competing, and I really enjoyed my 3 years over there. Yeah, it was good because Japan, like again in those days, every country, like you said so well, every country had its own style and his own school of thought. In Japan, well, Japan, not only in sports but in their society, everything is there are people that are very patient and very disciplined, very focused, and they bring that onto the court on volleyball. So in terms of patience, whatever, no matter how many reps you need to do to become better, you will do them. Don't worry about it. You'll do them. And so we trained for long hours, but it was the focus was very much on the technical aspect of the game, and a lot of reps and a lot of long practice. But I did improve a lot when I was over there, so that was good. And after that, though, you're in Japan. It's a beautiful country, but I just wanted to experience something a little bit different. Okay. And I went to play in France.
France, okay, yeah.
Yes, in France, it's a small town by the coast, Riviera. It's called Fréjus, and it's just a beautiful place. One of the nicest places in the world I've seen. And I stayed there for 5 years. I was playing with some amazing team. We won just about every year. Maybe players that you like Alain Fabiani was their setter. Eric Ngapet, the father of the other Ngapet, was playing there.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, and a couple other national team players, Hervé Mazon, and actually the first 2 years I was there, another Canadian player played there, Glenn Ho, who was the coach, and after that it was Gino Busso. So we had a really good team. We competed into the European Cup of Champion during those times. We finished second once. which was a good team because we took out CSKA Moscow
Hey.
To get there. So that was a good team. Yeah. That was a bit of an upset, but we were proud of that. So yes, it was 5 years in Japan, not in Japan, but in France. That was
Yes.
a lot of, I won't say fun. It was fun, of course, but as far as an athlete is concerned, I really lived the sport aspect of my life to the fullest. It was really good. I did a little stint also in Treviso.
Okay. Yes.
That was a good team also in Treviso. They had guys like, stars, international stars like Paolo Toffoli was setting, not Cantagalli, Cantagalli and Bernardi, and Gianpaolo Montari was coaching. So that was a really, really good team. I stayed there for about 3 months at the end of their season. And yeah, that's pretty well. I did a little stint also in Bordeaux. After I retired, I went back, not to drink wine, volleyball.
And how was it for you as a Canadian player who started his sport life in basketball or ice hockey, I don't know, to play in the best leagues of the world, in France, Italy, and Japan, with the best players of the world in this time? How was it for you and for your person? Because to play, I know, because I've interviewed many players who played in these leagues, and told me to be a professional in this leagues is very tough, because the crowd always ask you for more. If you lose one game, you're an enemy. They want to kill you. And how was it for you to be in this mega cities of volleyball?
Yes. Well, it's true, and yeah, you can see that there's some warm blood in the fans. They're very expressive, and it's part of the show, and I really liked it. It didn't bother me really. It's fun to play at home, when they're all cheering for you. Yes. But when you're playing away from home, and really, I don't think it really did affect me. But more to the point of your question, I know this is a little bit cliche, but for me to be able to play out there with those players in those clubs during those competition I always felt it was such a privilege. And I know, again, it's a cliche, but it really was such an amazing opportunity to be able to earn a living playing a sport you love in a different culture, meeting all sorts of people. I mean, come on, life doesn't get better than that. It was such a great experience.
I envy you so much. but I'm so happy to speak with you, because as I told you in the beginning of this interview or outside camera, for me it's a pleasure to know people like you who played in the best leagues, in the best championships of the world in the past, in the 80s, in the 70s, the 90s, and also because I want to show the world that before today, especially for the young players, there were so many volleyball. We have so many players. We have so many championships, leagues, and one of my goals is to honor people like you who played in this level, and to rescue sometimes many information that today it's not available in magazines from this time. I have some German magazines, some American magazines. There were some little photos, but today with social media, with the internet, we can watch this. We can review the games from the Italian league or the Olympic games. And so, as I told you, I saw this guy jumping like a crazy man in the Olympics in Los Angeles, and now have the chance to speak with this jumper. So for me, it's a great opportunity, and I'm very, very pleased, and it's my privilege, as you played in this time. It's my privilege to be able to know you, to speak with you, to honor you in my volleyball channel. And I wanted to ask you, Paul, about you told me your experience in the national team and as a professional player. And when did you start thinking also, okay, I'm becoming older. I have to think what I will do after playing volleyball. What did you remember this time, or was it natural for you? How was this decision or this moment when you have to choose to stop?
Yes, I went to school to become a teacher.
Okay.
But after a while, I just completely changed my mind. I thought that maybe teaching was not my thing.
Okay.
And I was thinking of retiring maybe at, 34, 35 years old. And at that time, 35 years old was an old volleyball player.
Yes.
There was not a lot of 35 years old that
Absolutely.
could play.
Yes.
But at 33, I think I ended up with a severe injury that prevented me from coming back. So at 33, it was my retirement.
Okay.
And I was not entirely ready for it. And it's a very good question, Alfredo, because it's truly a retirement.
Yes.
It's like you all of a sudden you stop doing completely the things that you've loved so much doing. You leave your teammates, you leave your club, you leave that passion behind, and it takes a while really to recover from that. It's not easy, and there's a lot of literature on that.
Yes.
Written about the Olympic blues and all that stuff. And I lived it. I'm not ashamed to say it. It was a period. It didn't last too long, but it was a period. It was a period of my life that was not easy. I missed it. I missed it a lot because unexpectedly I had to retire. Yes. Because of that injury. Right after that, because of the connections I had in Europe, because of all the people I knew, I started a company called SIM, Sport International Management, which morphed into Sim Gratton, to help Canadian volleyball players to go play pro in Europe. So sort of an agency.
Yes.
The agency had other agents that were specializing, focusing mostly on hockey players. I was the only one for football. Yeah. And so that's what I did for about 10 years after that. Well, almost 10 years. And I focused a lot on trying to give that opportunity to as many Canadian players as I could. And it went well. The company still exists. Another ex-national team player or two runs it now, and they have been running it for about 10 years. So that company kind of made a transition between, the playing, because I was in contact with the players over there. I was still involved with the sport, but in a different way. So that made the transition easier. Yeah.
Fantastic. Paul, I want to thank you for this conversation. For me, it has been a pleasure to know you, to know about your volleyball history, about your achievements, about your hard work, and also as I told you before, to be able to speak with play from the past and who could play Olympic Games, World Championships, and the best leagues in the world. For me, it's a privilege. So I want to thank you again for accepting this invitation to speak with me, to speak, and that what my followers around the world know the famous jumper Paul Gratton. So I want to thank you enormously for your time and your kindness to speak with me.
It was really, really, truly my pleasure, Alfredo. I had such a fun time, and congratulations on your site. It's fantastic. I went through so many interviews that you've done. They're all super interesting. Some I don't understand because they're in Spanish, but I'm going to practice Spanish and maybe I can learn.
I must. It's all about learning, because I started this. I'm not a journalist. I only love volleyball, and I am chapter after chapter. I learned some things new. I want you to know how to put subtitles to the programs, because I know many people ask me, and when I interview in English, how can you put subtitles? I think in YouTube you can do this. Or, for example, I interviewed Alexander Sabin with a Russian friend who speaks Russian, so on. But for me, it's a life opportunity to do this, because, as I told you, I work in another thing. I work in advertising, but volleyball is in my veins. My father was a player, a coach. My brother plays. All my friends are from volleyball, ex-players in Chile, and now I have friends around the world, from Brazil, Bena Rahman, Alexander Sabin, Paul Gratton. For me, it's fantastic. I'm done. Many thanks, Paul, for your time.
Well, thank you, and hopefully we'll have the chance to meet sometime in the gym somewhere.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Fantastic. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alfredo. Bye.